Hey everyone, welcome back to Fed Up with me, the eternal miserable one, Fed Up Gaz. Joining me today at Hatred Range, Jeff and Mitch from the band. How are you today, guys?
Doing well on yourself?
Not too bad. A little bit with the cough attacks, but we're getting there. So
Yeah.
for those that don't know, would you both tell us a little bit about your roles within the band?
You want to start? Sure. I'm Mitchi Dimitriadis. I'm the vocalist as well as the engineer and producer for the band. Um, I've assisted Jeffrey with writing the lyrics. We've also owned in a lot of like the recordings, just DIY ourselves. We recorded the guitars, the bass, the drums, all right here in this basement, actually.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, so we recorded here in my house. It was very fortunate. We also captured the videos that we've released here in the basement. So it's been pretty awesome to be able to do DIY ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the originator member of the band. Came up with the name, came up with the concept of the album, and wrote most of the music, but collaborated with our drummer and all the members to have their input to be able to solidify the songs that you guys get to hear on the album that'll drop December 1st. So this weekend, hopefully people will dig what we're putting down.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, let's hope so, man. I mean, it's very brutal. It's got that classic death metal feel as well. I enjoyed it immensely. It's got all the mosh feels. Um, I'm just curious as well. So how it's called, Awaken the Ancients. So what inspired that title?
So Awaken the Ancients was actually a band name consideration, but there's a band called Awaken
Right.
the Ancient. So I didn't want to copy or mimic them. So the band name Hatred Reigns was figured out. But Awaken the Ancients, it's just about the idea of the demons that are following the damned souls going to purgatory, that are trying
Yeah.
to mislead them and throw them off to lure them into their trap, to get them ensnared and remain in purgatory, to not be judged, and not get to purgatory to be judged. So
Yeah.
to me, Awaken the Ancients really has that. It's all the ancients that are following you along the journey, from the moment they commit suicide to
Yeah.
escorting them across to ferrying them across to purgatory. And even then, it never really stops. Their whole point is the torment and keep you ensnared in purgatory.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Like now it's how am I going to get past these demons that are now are going to play with us? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the opening track as well, the title track. Good 5 minute length songs. There's a lot to get into there. So uh, did you always want to open up with the title track to come in there strong, or originally was it placed somewhere else?
No, it was always placed at the beginning. We just wanted to set the stage, have the opening track just be inspirational. It's an homage to Suffocation in some ways. Pierce
Mm,
from Within's my favorite album by Suffocation. I did have I had an opening riff that was very similar, like I say, an homage to Suffocation originally, but we ended up dropping that. And what you hear is what you get. What just right out of the gate, just hit them hard, hit the audience with a track that just unrelenting from beginning to end.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it has a lot of the elements that I'm inspired by. Like, I'm an old school guy, grew up in the 90s and love all the originator tech decks from the late 80s to the early 90s. So I'm definitely inspired by that. But other members, they're they're inspired by the more modern tech bands. So try to infuse those in little flavors and dashes of those across all the songs. So to cover the bases and try to have a broad scope of music that can appeal to a large audience, not just we just write one style and that's it. Like, to just try to encompass all the different genres into one project.
yeah. You've got that nice amalgamation and a nice blend, like that bridging gap. Um, as you were touching about, the influence behind the title of the album, the title track. I think it's I've always said this with extreme metal as well. It can often be like a horror movie soundtrack or like a horror story,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. And this man, I'm already trying to behave. I was just nerding with Von from Reap on the show before this, and now I'm already trying to stop myself going from hyper tangents. But with having such a visual imagination, man, and reading about the concepts, and it makes me think of like this. I'm seeing it now in my mind as I'm talking, this other realm and these like characters who are trying to get past some of these demons that are playing for them, going across this landscape, being pursued or whatever. So that just again, it just hits with that kind of classic death metal imagery. Musically very brutal, as you were saying. Really good to get down there and mosh to. Was this the one? I remember right. Is this the one? I think you've got a video out for this at the moment as well.
Yeah, we have a song for this and the last track, Departing Asheron, are the two songs that we have band videos that have been released thus far.
Nice. And I also like as well, there's a part where I was reading about the album. It says like, in a quest for liberation, the damned are ferried across by Sharon, the famous the boatman, across the river Styx there, lured to the ancients towards the necropia, where ultimate judgment awakes. Did you look at any stories, about Sharon, anything from movies and books and movies for helping as well?
The concept of the album actually originated before the band name appeared, was discovered. I'm highly influenced by John Milton's Paradise Lost, and you got Dante's Inferno, but it was actually the film What Dreams May Come. Robin Williams was in the film. The story of damned souls going to hell and trying to save the souls. All the imagery in that movie was amazing. And then a little bit, you even see the souls being ferried across in the parts of the Caribbean. There's a scene there where her father's going across the boat. So all this imagery has always been fascinating to me about souls. Like everyone says, what happens when you die? Like some people don't believe that there's reincarnation. Some people believe, your soul doesn't go to hell, doesn't go to heaven. So there's all kinds of different belief systems that people have. But for me, I like to leave it open-ended that there's possibility that it is possible, but we don't know. The last song ends with them arriving at Necropia, at the island of Purgatory, so that there's open-endedness. We could revisit this theme. We could just leave it there, and like the album artwork, which you may hit on, but the album artwork to me is song 9. It represents what is happening when they get there, how they're being judged and whatnot, with all the visuals that you see and the depth of characters that's involved in the artwork.
Well, yeah, I definitely will touch on the artwork. That's something I like to do with guests. What we see when you see those figures that could be like Grim Reapers or Shadow creatures, you see them like looking down upon all these souls going through kind of a pathway into a gate, and you see like the damp makes me think, oh man, but it makes me think of I don't know, you might have played the game, Jeff, I think it's one of the Dark Souls games, when you first arrive in the city and you see all like the dark towers and you've got these mysterious dark hooded figures. Really, the album artwork, it reminds me of that with how you see it as well. So did you work with the artist to get this image to get together? Did you go back and forth, or did you literally give him free rein and he come back with you? And he came back with this. Sorry.
So we gave Pedro a sketch, an idea of what direction to go with, and he went 180 of that. But I definitely dig what Pedro's direction that he evolved. We had the band. We talked about it, what we wanted to do. Working with him hand in hand, we went back and forth. We had ideas that we definitely wanted to have incorporated. Like the tentacles was something we definitely wanted to have incorporated. I wanted to have Sharon. You see the boat falling off the waterfall. You see it's breaking. Showing. I wanted to have elements from our EP cover that have continued into this the LP. So you're seeing some of the elements are carrying through. Pedro had a lot of freedom to be creative, which I think you need to allow artists to be able to have freedom, not to hold them by the reins and be too controlling. But I would give input because he had a lot of structures that looked too cathedral, too much like churches, that said, can you try to make them look more deteriorated and more dilapidated? So he did go back and forth. He added a lot of like tree roots you'll see to the central structures of the
Yeah.
throne people. He added a lot of elements that way too. Do not make it look so clean. I wanted like hell or whatever to purgatory is supposed to be like this place of pain. I don't want to look clean and fresh. I want to look like it is damned and tortured and people are suffering and but you'll see there's a lot of souls if you go looking at details and zooming in. You'll see there's a lot of depth that
Right in the background, yeah.
Work. I think he did an exceptional job for it.
Yeah, it is, and the even if you, what I like is up the top left where you've got the Hatred Reigns and then the band in the fonts there, very classic extreme metal. But if you look at the bottom right where it says Awaken the Ancients, that and again I'm going to just show how much of a nerd I am, but that makes me think of almost like D&D, Lord of the Rings. Those fantasy elements, the way they do the lettering on those movies. I'm honestly, dude, I'm so nerdy. It's insane. So
if we shot in my other room, you would have quite your jaw would be on the floor because I have.
I'd be foaming, wouldn't I?
I have lots of swords and weapons in my other room. That I'm a collector of Lord of the Rings, United Cutlery weaponry. So yeah, I hesitated on doing it for you because I figured, yeah, you might enjoy that. But
yeah, dude, I'm literally trying to behave myself. I used to do Dark Ages combat reenactment, fight with all the swords, and literally to the right of me, I've still got one of my swords. I brought it out on a recent show I was talking with a thrash band from over here, and the lead singer does combat reenactment. When they mentioned that, I just had to get up during the show. I was like, yeah, here's the sword, and I was hitting the microphone and everything, but I'll behave myself for now. But yeah, I would be, man. I love all that stuff, fighting systems, fantasy, web, everything. Yeah, I'm going off already. So I'll come back to the band because I'm spasming. So yeah, pain leads to nothingness. What's interesting about this one, it says our central character succumbs to the overwhelming forces that surround them. You've departed from this existence, and the dramatic exit is precisely as they had wished and planned. So I just wondered if you both could tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind it and then how you put the music to go with it as well.
Sure. So Pain Leads to Nothingness was actually already written back from the EP days, but I didn't join the band until 2021.
2021, yeah, when he came on as the engineer.
Yeah. And then we reworked that song and put it in the proper tempo that it was envisioned before the EP even. And Jeff and I actually we did a lot of sound design and a lot of sample rework to create this intro for our live set list where you hear like a person climbing on top of a building while there's chaos and an apocalypse happening downstairs. You hear police sirens and a lot of disharmony going on until it gets to that fatal moment where Buddy just kills himself, and that's when the song starts. And it really it encompasses what happens to that soul right when they do take their own life, and then what they start experiencing in that brief moment.
Yeah, I think I was reading about you using spoken word parts, some of those atmosphere parts of the music as well, and I thought, look, obviously it's a death metal album, but you really have, and I mean this in a good way, gone overboard to really bring that cinematic style through as well, to show, look, this is a story as well. This is about the character, the music. The story is part of the music as well. Being an ultra nerd, man, I love things like that. Just hits all the right buttons for me.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when I first came into this band, actually, that's what was my selling point the most, was that this was a death metal band that actually had this kind of cinematic or thematic concept to it, whereas usually not every death metal band, but usually more or less death metal bands have a very more straightforward sound. Whereas this one had themes and images that you didn't really see in brutal death metal, so it felt unique to me.
Yeah, it gives it that other element, a different identity, and I feel
Yeah.
You know, not to contradict myself, anything I've said in any other episode here, but I sometimes feel people can underestimate how extreme metal music, particularly death metal as well, can be used cinematically. It really works. You put in these different elements in the music, and it can still be brutal. You know, yet some cats are like, "Oh, that's made it, makes it soft." I'm like, no, it doesn't. It can actually enhance it and really bring that to life. Where you're thinking, like with this story, okay, so we know where the soul now is located, and these other souls. So a ballad isn't going to go well with that. A sinister one, to introduce a song, a sinister one, dark melody, of course. But if it was something really happy, like la 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 la, la, it's not going to fit with this kind of story. And I feel, you've taken, as you said, that cinematic approach and demonstrated that. And this is no ego stroking, but it's like you were just saying, Jeff. It's not every death metal band always does that, and it's nice. It gives it a different identity. Perfect segue into Depths Unknown. I mean, this is powerful stuff when you read frantically falling, flailing to and fro. So already thinking of someone like falling in a void, their hands and arms just going everywhere. And it says the protagonist is caught between the whirlwind of uncertainty and grappling with the unpredictable twists of their destiny, and the ultimate destination remains shrouded in mystery as they descend into the abyss of the unknown. Now, this is great stuff because reading that, hearing the music, that automatically makes you think, well, where is this character going? Where are they going to be? I mean, yes, we do get there later in the album. So, I mean, it's very intricate, complex story. So, did this make it a challenge matching the music with it, or did it actually wasn't that much of a challenge at all? Actually, happened quite naturally.
So for me, the lyrical concept was separate from the music. Music was the both were written separately, and then you find a way to make them fuse together and work really well. And that's where Mitch was really honestly a godsend to the band. Like I had melodies of how I figured them being placed, but Mitch was able to execute them, and he actually brought his own vision. Like you just brought up the friendly falling, flailing to, and fro. I always had fro being held out, and Mitch was able to do that fro, like to do that broken up technique, which to me was like that was so cool because it was him adding his own flavor, his own touch to these songs, bringing the idea. So you bring up a comment about visual, and I'm very visual, so I always think in film is one of my favorite mediums. So this scene that we're talking about, To Depths Unknown, is Jennifer Connelly falling in Labyrinth. And how the hands are coming out, she's falling in the darkness, then like you want to go down, the faces, all that kind of puppeteering, all the stuff. It has that kind of reference of where I came up with that idea. The theme was someone falling between the planes. Like they've now left the mortal plane, they're falling, and just where's this darkness? It's just dark. But they don't really know the orientation where they're going. They're going down. You'll see other movies like where people fall into pools, but it's supposed to simulate their out of body experience. They don't know where they're going. That's really what this is. It's a journey somewhere, but into pitch darkness, and that's where you hear the talking leading into the next song, Ob, which is very thematic, very Lord of the Rings inspired. But Mitch and I were able to work together to make the orchestration of Ob. And all the songs pretty much are interlaced, how they tie together thematically. So when you hear the person's talking in Ob, it's now they're in their head. So they've gone from falling to where am I to where am I in Ob. They're internally having a dialogue within themselves. The person, the individual, the protagonist of our story. They don't have a sex. I want it to really be the listener could imagine themselves as that person doing this, being in the moment. But Ob is about that. It's being about them in their head. What's going on? Having this inner conversation and just trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, do you want to elaborate on Depths or Ob? Obsolarium, by the way. We use shorter version of Ob. It's just bad.
We've got too used to just giving short abbreviations.
Depths
to our
Ob, yeah.
Yeah, until you make me the nerd.
But Obsolarium was actually extremely fun to designed the intro for it, like that one really, I feel, left its mark into what kind of a thematic and cinematic band that we're trying to be. Whereas I'm sure there are lots of death metal bands that have that like really big like orchestral like intro to their music. However, this one was more of an interlude somewhere in the album, so like you have like a nice big break, and then like it takes a ballad, I guess,
ballad,
what you want to call it.
Yeah, dark ballad, yeah.
Yeah, and compared to the other songs, it's definitely more straightforward and simple. However, it still captures like a different emotion that actually might appeal to a different audience that don't just want technical, brutal, and heavy all the time.
Yeah. It's the songs feel they feel like chapters within in the story as well. A very brutal story, both musically and with the concept. So, ushered by, we did just talk about Obsolarium, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just for my reference. I'm just making sure. Yeah, I'm just making sure I don't miss anything. Disclaimer, folks, I did one show before this, so my mind's a little all over at the moment. As a disclaimer, I'm going with. Yeah, so ushered by Sharon. Man, I mean, this dude, I mean, aside from that guy being so interesting in himself, says, working into a surreal reality. The protagonist finds themselves in a desolate wasteland at the water's edge, surrounded by countless lost souls, like what we saw in the cover, adrift and purposeless. A vessel emerges on the horizon, guided by the shelled figure at its helm, Charon, the ferrier of souls. Again, this just the title itself conveys that powerful imagery, because again, that makes me think of not only the character games like Dark Souls, various movies and books. So I just wondered, did you do any reading or research on Sharon and for this song, and did that help influence the title and the lyrics?
Yep. Sorry, Mitch.
No, you go ahead. This is all you.
I know. This it's me. It's talking more, but Mitch will have input for sure. So, Ushered is track 5. We now entered into realm 2, which is Affirmation. The first 4 songs fall under Affliction. So the protagonist that's struggling and going through the journey of where their life is or the next phase of their life is going to happen. This has them waking up on a shore, up on a precipice. The first verse really does describe where they're at. They now become conscious because they were just falling in darkness. Now they become to this place of like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And then they see that there's all these damn souls that are wandering around. They kind of look like cloaked figures that you mentioned before, hooded like monks kind of thing, walking.
Dark monks.
They're not zombies, but they're kind of adorned in these faceless figures just walking around. The EP cover really did encapsulate the second half of this album. The artwork that was used on that, it really shows the gateways. It shows the people. It shows Sharon coming towards the shore. I know there's multiple ways people say Karen, Sharon, Karen, whatever you want to make fun of it. You could just say everyone's Sharon Osbourne or Karen this.
And Mad Karen.
All the Mad Karens after COVID, yeah. So whatever you want to say. I don't care if you strip up on it because it's funny. We laugh at it as well ourselves. But it's about the figure. And so to answer your question, yes, I did do research on the Greek mythology of Karen Sharon. And when I was writing it, I was working with Brandon, our previous vocalist, before Mitch joined the band. And we came up with this idea that they're a spirit. They're no longer a physical form. So when in Greek, how they put the coins on the eyes, they're like, this is your payment to give Sharon, Karen, whatever, to go across. I even fuck it up myself saying his name in my head. But we realized they're not going to have physical coins or something with them. So we came up with this concept of, instead of it being a physical payment, it's going to be the pain inside of them would be their fare. But because they're alert, because they wake up, they're just arrived here. The other people have been aimlessly walking around for a while. This is someone who's conscious, sees the boats are coming, sees other boats are off in the distance, but he walks down the shoreline. And the idea actually came from Gorod's cover with the soul that's screaming with fire coming out of his mouth, or even Big Trouble in Little China where like the Asian guy is breathing fire in his mouth.
yeah.
So mine was the opposite. He opens his mouth and he absorbs his soul. He takes his energy from the soul to give passage to be able to get the fairy onto the boat. So there was a lot of thinking about, here's the historical story.
Yeah.
Let's segue into our own kind of story, because instead of going to purgatory, we're going to this island called Necropia. So we gave the island Purgatory a name called Necropia. So they're going to, it's just trying to mirror the stories that everybody knows with their own little spin on it. But that's how they get passage to get on the boat to go. And the song talks about the trapped souls that are there. It's coming out mid-December. I did a thematic playthrough, and I call it thematic because it isn't just me playing the song. Was shot in Peggy's Cove, which is such a unique place in Canada. Some people know Peggy's Cove for different reasons. For me, I've loved growing there when I lived in Halifax. It's got these unique geological structures that are unlike anywhere else, with the Atlantic Ocean that is just torrent. You do not go on the Black Rocks. You will fall in and die. You will not get out. You'll be sucked in. So thematically, it actually made sense that this beautiful place that's also dark and sinister, because those waters, they suck a lot of people in, and you do not come back. So for me to do this thematic video that comes out in a few weeks' time, it set the stage. Would I love to have done it as a full band? Absolutely. I love every video to be the full band, but instead of just doing a playthrough sitting here in my chair, I was like, the opportunity presented itself to be filmed at this location, Peggy's Cove, and it's not available yet for you to see, but it's thematically, it plays on this whole part of this ominous sky with ominous dark waters that are lurking behind, and just imagine a boat coming up and you getting on that boat to ferry across to a mythical island that's, again, you don't know what's going to happen, but the waters of what's lurking, the gray skies above that has like demons that are coming down to try to get you. This goes into the future songs, but I'm saying it all plays into this. The affirmation is that they're now at this place, but they still don't know what's to come. It's kind of like anything in life. You know, you have a dream, you want to do something, but how do you get there from A to Z, right?
The journey,
you don't know, but you have to embark on it if you really want to see it through.
Is Peggy's Cove, the reason I'm going to ask that, is that region that's very, very...
South shore of near Halifax. It's half an hour southwest of...
Is that where there's lots of horrible things have happened?
Yeah, so what's there 111, air crash happened there. There's been countless fishermen have died there. There's been lots of sadness that happened there. But lots of beautiful things happened there too.
I think I've seen a documentary about it on TV. You mentioned it.
Crazy tides, waves that crash. It's a unique place that I definitely recommend people check out if you ever.
Yeah. Well, I always think one of the most frightening things on the planet actually is water and the oceans. All these mysteries and things we hear about it. I talked with one of the earlier episodes, an Austrian death metal band called Gaiod, and they did a whole concept about like the dark depths of the ocean, mysteries that are down there, all that kind of thing. That was the whole concept behind them. When they play live, they have the faces not quite clear because they like to put themselves across as these mysterious kind of beings from the depths. I think that was the name of the album actually as well, From the Depths. So I've always been fascinated by stories like that around the ocean. So Mitch,
one thing. Mitch plays in another band. I'll let him tell you what it's all about.
Yeah, I play in another progressive technical death metal band. The guitar player for that one. We're called Thalassophobia. So
I got the promo for them, I think.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I think they're in my inbox somewhere. And funnily enough, I was looking at them. I thought this sounds interesting on my bucket list, but as yet I haven't got to hit them up. So we'll have to get a show organized for that as well.
Yeah, no, you definitely should. And I don't mean to go on about it, but we actually have Mark Phillips, the ex-vocalist for Clitoris, as our frontman. Yeah, nice. It's a very promising lineup for sure, and I love the concept that we have.
And what does thalassophobia mean?
Fear of open water.
Yes.
Yeah.
It ties in together what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, see, when we've seen all these documentaries and stories from people that are sailors, people who've been in the Navy, merchant Navy as well, and then there's something to be said that even from way back in history, and I think, look, these people are out there in the ocean seeing things that we that I haven't come across. There's something to be said for it for sure. And oh man, I could nerd about that all day. Even mysterious sea creatures, the lot, man. So Mitch, when I'm curious as well, when you know the concept that you've got here with Hatred Reigns, the character and the story. So I wondered, when you're doing the vocals, do you just do the vocals how you would do for any death metal band? I don't mean that in a negative light. Or do you get the imagery in your mind from the concept and think, right, I'm gonna try and sound, I guess, put myself in that realm and sound like otherworldly, like I'm something from that realm or somebody that is in that realm and is expressing, I guess, that anger and frustration. I'm not going to say fear because that wouldn't go with the death metal style vocals.
No, for sure, definitely. Again, because this band has such a thorough concept,
Yeah,
it could almost be commissioned for a movie, almost.
definitely.
I felt it was very easy to attach myself to, and like use my imagination, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure it was where like you really hear the what's that word I'm looking for? You really hear the syllables too, but it's also not uneligible.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. The every syllable of every word was audible instead of being
yeah. You get a lot of the, like, you get a lot of in brutal death metal, you get a lot of the with this one, we wanted to make sure you actually hear what the vocalist is saying, so it conveys that emotion more. Yeah, but again, because this band was formed before I was in it, there were more or less like some lyrics that were written, so I was able to take that as a good foundation on what they're looking for. So it was kind of just it was just history from there.
Yeah. Oh no, it's interesting. I was curious because I often wonder when people tell me about like concept albums, if that has an influence on the vocalist as well, if they get that into the mind. So yeah, I was interested, man. So excuse me, I'm gonna have to mute for a second, folks. Sorry about this. Just get the cough out. Man, coughing up a lung again. So no. Absentia.
Absentia.
Sorry, absentia. Blaming the cough attack there. No, this is interesting. As the vessel ventures onward, and we've just been talking about water there. Metaphorical.
Plains Divide is the next song.
Plains Divide. I missed that. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. I've scrolled down. Plains Divide. Right. Forget that. We'll come to that in a moment, folks. If I was pro, I'd edit that out, but no, I like to keep things DIY and raw. So, undeterred by the little dangers that lie beyond the shoreline, the protagonist pays the fare required. I love that when you're saying, Jeff, about in pain, that the fare, like low pan style, like sucking that energy out, like that's the payment, not something physical, almost as if like, okay, I can sense your misdeeds or whatever what you've done, and that's going to pay the toll across. Very interesting interpretation, and it's different as well, because usually, as I say, we use the classic, right? Here's the coin, ferry across the water. So yeah, after he's paid the fare, it says embark across a treacherous void, and unbeknown to them, the journey will lead them through the realms that are far more perilous than anticipated. So I'm going to ask a loaded question on this one. The first part, how was you getting that mindset to kind of describe lyrically this journey, and then that this whole kind of scene, if that makes sense?
Do you want us to respond, or you have more to?
And the second part, sorry, yeah, you're right. In the second part, I know the music is wrote differently and recorded. Did you look at the music that you had, and particularly, and was the one piece of that music that you thought, this one really fits with this track, this is going to do it more justice than something else that we already have worked on?
Yeah, so again, as a concept, it's very cohesive. However, I find that the songs are not necessarily like a continuation of the next one. When I mean sonically, like it's not like in the same key, in the same tempo, with the same style. It's almost a departure from what it could be. So to me, that adds more flavor. whereas each song is its own journey, its own emotion, as opposed to having that one album where every song sounds similar. I get now
Yeah.
that's subjective, but personally, I like that approach. When I hear a band,
Yeah.
it keeps me engaged for sure.
The other thing to understand or share with the listener, some of these songs were written at very different times.
Yeah.
Awaken The Ancients were written pretty much cohesively in the same time period, whereas Departing was actually written originally in 2005. It's the oldest song on the album. Some of these other songs we've reworked. We've had different members come in and out of the band, so they've been like, we like this part. Let's change this part. So with this lineup that we solidified in 2020, Mitch came in 2021. We really honed in and said, okay, what are we going to do here? What are we going to keep? What are we going to change? What are we going to do to try to keep the songs that we had without, let's scrap all this and start writing together? Because I think a lot of albums that cohesively flow or were written together in a short amount of time, so they have more continuity. These songs were kind of written at different times, so they do have different thematic themes, different kind of feelings, different influences that were incorporated into it. But
different colors as well.
But we as a group, we actually signed off on all of it together. Like there are parts in Ancients that weren't there when we started recording, which is amazing. Like anything can happen during the recording process. We made changes during the recording process, but it didn't change the tempo of the riff. We just changed what was happening. In fact, I will share. I know I'm jumping off topic here, but
no, it's all right.
We did guitars first. We didn't do drums first, so it gave the opportunity for the drummer to be able to get familiar and change, because changes happened, and somehow we didn't know the changes were going to happen, but they did happen. And by doing the guitars first, normally most people track the drums first, then we track guitars to the drums. So by doing it this out of order, we were able to allow freedoms, be able to allow some freedoms for changes to happen. For, hey, this guitar part's too fast, can you slow it down? So we really wanted to instead of demoing all the songs beforehand, we just kind of said, let's just get into it, let's get it done. It did take longer to go through the songs, record them with this process, but I think the outcome, the final product really shined. So going back to your point about Plains, I wanted to have a more aggressive song. I wanted to bring in out of the gate. It's like technical, more fast guitars.
No.
The cryptopsy on this song. We got like a progressive outro, which doesn't really appear. We have an aggressive. We have a progressive outro on Absentia as well. But I didn't want to have the album have every single song sound the same. I really wanted to have a spattering of, here's a slam riff, here's a brutal riff, here's all this. So the songs really do infuse all these different elements. Plains is one of these anomalies that it's a hard song to play. It's one of the songs that we've been challenged by, that when we play it and execute it tightly, we're like, yay. But it's also the one we kind of went, all right, we've had enough of this, because it appears on the EP and it was at a slower tempo. We brought it up to its full tempo, the original intended tempo. The Pain and Plains are the two things that are released again on the LP. And I can explain that the EP was always supposed to be an LP. It was always supposed to be this album 5 years ago, but the members at that time weren't ready. So it's taken time to get this. It's now here. Plains is one of the songs that I think it lends itself well in the placement where it falls in the album. It goes from a technical song, and then we segue into Absentia, which is, again, it's a unique song unto itself for all the elements that are infused there. It was inspired by Opeth. Got black metal elements that are inspired there. You have some bass tapping riffs, so it just shows dynamics. Like, to me, Absentia is very different because we added a lot of orchestral stuff. Mitch added a lot of it kind of stands out from the other 7 songs because it has a lot of orchestral elements. But I'll let Mitch explain like why we infuse these elements to it.
Just to add what Jeff was saying earlier, recording and playing live is a completely different beast. So for any bands out there that are starting out, it could be a very discouraging experience for them when it actually comes to record. But all I can say is that your internalized tempo, or what you interpret the tempo to be when you're jamming, or at rehearsal, is completely different than when you're actually sitting there with like a metronome hearing what it's supposed to be. So there's always like little changes that like inevitably have to happen. And so for Absentia, because that one was more of a departure from like I'd say like style wise, it's more on the black metal side. I felt giving it that orchestral edge kind of gives it a little bit more character and a more definition, where it's like, hey, why does this song sound extremely different than the rest of the album, but still tied in thematically.
It is the only song I can admit that has a chorus. I've never written a chorus before, but we wrote a chorus that is actually catchy and hooky, and it's not repetitive. It repeats itself in the album, but the chorus isn't like, hey baby, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's got the same lines, but we were able to vary it. So it has, it still grabs the audience because it's repeated within the album. But I don't know, to me, he was able to approach it and give it just some uniqueness that Mitch did a great job, honestly, vocally with all these songs. But this one in particular, it was not written. Vocals were actually not written. This was the one that Mitch and I penned it together. This and Ob, we penned it together, and I think the end result really achieved the goal that we were striving for.
Yeah, and I think just as a listener, using those orchestral elements, there's a part when I was reading about Absentia where it says the protagonist's senses are tampered with, blurring the lines between reality and illusion. And I think that demonstrates that kind of turmoil and feelings the character has with, what is this reality? Where am I? What is in this realm? Because you think if you were faced with something like that, you would be as like, well, where is this? Where am I? How can I survive? What have I got to do? And trying to process and then think, how can I just make it through this part of the journey to get to the next? Is the way out? And I think it really succeeded in bringing that across to the listener. I mean, I don't know, maybe other people, then, and there's nothing wrong with this either. Listen to the music I do myself and enjoy it, and that's great. Of course, we want them to do that, but because I'm such a nerd as well, and I notice things like that, and other people may not, or there may be others who are even more nerdy than I am that did pick up on all of these elements. But I feel, we were saying earlier, when I was saying earlier about if someone was in this dark realm, a kind of ballad wouldn't go with it unless it was a sinister or a dark ballad, or using that orchestral music in the right way. And we've seen it in horror films or urban fantasies where they've used what could be classed as kind of melodic, beautiful music, but it's got this really eerie kind of dark edge to it. It's really creepy, where there's something sinister, that this isn't a nice place or something nice isn't going to happen. And that's what I feel that kind of does this in this song.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go a bit off topic, I'm, as much as he's the Lord of the Rings fan, I'm a huge fan for, I don't know if you've heard of Resident Evil, the gaming franchise, before.
Yes, I'm an absolute fanboy of them.
Yes, and
the movies, even though they're bad.
Yes, I still give the movies the credit where it's due. However, those games in particular, ever since I was 6 years old, I found that there was very, very sad, beautiful, melancholy music behind what was going on, which added so much more emotion to the experience as opposed to just being like straight up, scary or.
You've got me thinking already as well, because I've yet to get the remaster of Resident Evil 4, which everybody says is fantastic, but I do have the remaster of Resident Evil 2, and there's a particular scene, you probably know where I'm going to go with this. I think it's where you're looking for those parts to go in the statue, in the police station to open up the room. And I think there's that music that plays when you're reading this, and man, it all adds to it. And then, of course, things happen. That's why those games for me are masterpieces in that way. I know some of the later releases are a bit debatable in quality, but 2 and 4, absolutely fantastic. Apparently Resident Evil 7 was good, which I haven't got around to playing. And Resident Evil Village is supposed to be really cool as well, which I still haven't got to. But yeah, definitely, man. I even thought the actual, the Netflix series that everybody canned.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't great, but I do feel the actor, was it Lance? Oh, sadly he passed away, Lance Reddick or something.
Yeah, it's
He
Lance
played
Reddick.
Wesker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I thought him as Wesker. I thought he was actually one of the highlights of that series.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, for sure. Like I actually enjoyed that show just because of him, really.
Yeah, definitely. And the scene where I think it was where they were going to the where they were all ambushed by the lickers, when they were going to that tunnel, that was good. Anyway, I'll come back to your music. We're just going off on a random nerd.
Yeah, we had to do
Yeah,
that.
right. Well, you said this happens on the show. Yeah. With regards to like the album as a whole, before Mitch joined as the vocalist, he was our engineer. I just want to share, like, he and I discussed this album on a grand scale. Like, I would be showing him all these different albums, like in the car, be listening to, and Penter ended up being one of those albums I kept on bringing up, because when you're sitting in your car, I could feel the music through the whole dash. Like in the center it was sound on the left and right. So and I kept on coming back to certain albums. I'd be like, feel it. You can actually hear it here. Where some albums, all you hear is the music off to left and right, and it's missing like this point. So I was saying to him from the get-go, like, I really wanted sonically to sound cohesive. I wanted to be thematic music, orchestral music. Like, I was so eager to get to the orchestral stuff. It's like, dude, wait. And then we finally got there. Like, oh, so excited. And man, he's done a masterful job, because to me, I wanted to take people on a journey from beginning to end. Not just be like, oh, this song's a filler song. This is like, how many albums have you listened to where you usually skip songs because it's boring?
Exactly.
Right. But I wanted to take the listener on a journey, and that's what I tried to achieve. I think we cohesively worked on that to make sure that we achieved that goal.
Yeah, it's keeping the listener there for a journey, and you're absolutely right, because there often is those one or two tracks on an album where it's just filler. It's just being put on there. And I always think, I only said this recently in another show, just take that track out. If it's filler and it's really not doing the rest of the music and album justice or EP, then don't include it. Just remove it out. People would rather hear more, even if it's shorter, more cohesive, put together quality, than say something that's a bit subpar that isn't doing the rest. Just like, oh yeah, that's filler, I'm going to skip that. So yeah, totally, man.
Sometimes you have to compromise. Yes, to make decisions for the greater good. You have to actually remove things. Those decisions can be hard for some, and other times, like, you know what? If it's the end result matters more to me. So if it takes 2 years to be able to achieve that result, it is 2 years. But if it takes 2 months to achieve that result, awesome. Like, I just don't like to having those restrictions. That's why recording here in the basement, doing it ourselves, we didn't have those limitations. We were able to have some freedoms with it and play with it. I think you can share or attest to that similar as well.
Yeah. Again, it would have been a completely different experience if we went to a more established studio with an hourly rate, with like a very high-end engineer. At the stage that we were in, it would have been a completely different process, because with us, like with me, I mean, we were able to hone in every meticulous little detail to make sure all members sign off on it, not just me and Jeff at the time, and it took lots and lots of hours, which I'm sure if we went to an established studio, we would have like blown our budget by then, and then that would create more drama for the band. So yeah, I was. I'm grateful for Jeff bringing me on board, and I'm also grateful for being able to share whatever knowledge and experience I had to make the vision happen.
I get the sense as well, with keeping it in-house, it's made the whole experience less stressful than knowing you don't have like maybe less stressful to a point in some regards.
Yes, a lot of things were out of our control. Like going through COVID, COVID, it's still happening. It's just the lockdowns really impeded things. We had electrical issues. We had weather circumstances. We had not tornadoes, but it was pretty much tornado. Like when we finished tracking guitar solos.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this story.
In our basement, outside, a tree had fallen over, but there was, driving Mitch home after that session, there was roads closed due to telephone poles were snapped in half. Cars were trapped underneath power lines. It was like, basically, you guys talk about Evil Dead? No.
Yeah.
Resident Evil. Sorry, Resident Evil. Sorry, Resident Evil. Sorry, guys. Yeah. But I'm saying, talk about this apocalyptic type environment. this is what we kind of we like. My dog and my daughter came flying down the stairs, like, "You guys, oh my god!" We were down here, lights were flickering, not really aware of what the chaos is going on upstairs. We're kind of focused, but at the same time, these moments happen, and these are things that Mitch and I can like laugh about and remember, reflect upon. But they also were delays, like people's schedules or conflictions. Like we want things to happen, but work happens. People have other obligations, commitments. So as much as we want to streamline things, shit happens. And I've kind of learned myself that it only causes anxiety and stress for everybody if someone's having that pressure of a deadline. But if you can kind of be like, hey, let's focus on the end result being the product, then it kind of frees up that it relieves some of the tension for sure. Because if someone's tense, everybody's gonna feel tense by it. So it's better to kind of chill and take the time you need.
But sometimes a deadline and lighting a fire up someone's ass is exactly what we need.
Yeah, it can be a motivating factor. It's a dual edge. In some regards, yes, it can take the pressure off, make it less stressful when you don't have those extenuating circumstances. But then in other regards, it can be right. Yeah, we've got a week to do this. We've got to get our butts moving. So it really depends. And I was going to ask you, Jeff, about that story which you brought up actually when you said the daughter and dog tore down the stairs, and it just shows you, man, Mother Nature, which people forget about. We all think we're the dominant species in control. I'm like, no, we aren't. We aren't.
The two things that we brought up was water and Mother Nature. Yeah. Honestly, these are things that we all just covet, we take for granted, but it can easily just you take anything for granted, and life can be like, nope, we're going to show you otherwise. Life is fragile. That's what I've learned from COVID. Appreciate the moments and just be present. Not trying to be this emotional person, but just saying like, I'm attached to music. I love music as an escape. I love music as a vision. I love movies to be able to appreciate the things and you feel the love. Well, that's just when we pour those energy into this music to try to showcase and create a vision to share with people. That is a thematic concept.
Yeah.
The next album may just be individual songs. We haven't solidified what the next album is going to be. We still have one more song to discuss. I know we're
we do. No, you're all right.
I need to go, but I'm just saying for me, people take life for granted far too much, and honestly, I think we've lost a lot of people through these last few years. A lot of talented musicians have passed away, not discrediting artists and actors, but musicians specifically in all genres, but specifically metal. Like for me, Sean Reinert, the drummer from Cynic, when we learned about his passing, now unfortunately his wasn't suicide, but we lost Sean Malone due to suicide. Just look at the two members of Cynic; those hurt me the most. Those two people passing, they had such influence on me. Cynic was such an influential band for me. I do talk to Jason through this whole time. Like when Sean Reinert's announcement happened, Jason and I, Goebel, who's the guitarist for Cynic, we're just in shock. And he's a friend of his. I've only had the luxury of meeting Sean Reinert a few times, and this is where the music for me. So the topic of the album is about suicide. So it brings up the whole concept of these people who succumb to the darkness. And something that I'm trying to show to my daughter to bring her into this is that life is fragile. Life is worth, all these little fights. We were joking last night about, who took my French fries when someone else is lying in bed dealing with cancer. And like the gravity of things that we make light of or we get frustrated about on the whole can be relatively small. Whereas whatever's pushed you to commit suicide, it sucks, man. Like life is so beautiful, even through the darkness. You want to get to the next day because the next day can award you with many, many wonderful things. But it's also, we're not in those people's shoes that go there. And that's why my journey is to get to purgatory, because at purgatory, going into departing here, they now get to be judged. And judgment can vary in people's religions and beliefs. I believe there's 4 opportunities. You can be trapped there, which is what the ancients are trying to do, to snare you and trap you in purgatory. Your judgment could be, you're a fucking asshole. You're going to hell. You deserve to burn in hell. That's what going through the gateway that you see. You also see there's a vortex in the background to the right of the upper right corner of the album art, which is people ascending to heaven, or depending on your belief system, you could be reincarnated and come back alive. And if I got reincarnated, I want to come back as a dog, but it depends on people's belief system. I just, I see, and again, I'm not here to be this happy, lovey-dovey,
Hey, you're all right, man. You're all right, man. Honestly,
to me, I think life is precious. Enjoy it, but I play technical death metal because it's a great escape to funnel my anger, funnel my creativity. I play metal, but on a day-to-day basis, people wouldn't see me as that. Like I don't wear the metal uniform day to day everywhere I go.
Me either. Look at.
I love to play it, man. Like to me, I'm more of a nerd, like you mentioned. Like again, if I turn to this other room, I got posters that influenced me behind you. You see Iron Maiden and Sepultura rise, but the passion for me is that creative outlet. Like when you discover movies, you discover like video games. You guys, I'm not much of a gamer, but I just see passion. Like when he talks about his passion for the video games, man, he's animated. He's excited. He's just let me talk.
Well, look, man, it had a huge impact on me because when I was 6 years old, I wasn't supposed to be playing those games like back in PS1.
They were a big thing, and they were some of the first back then as well, especially Resi 1.
And where I'm from, when you buy video games, like there wasn't really parental advisory. Like you could buy a game that's rated M even if you're 6 years old. So I was actually scarred from playing those games at such like a young age.
Well, do you think like Resi 1, that scene where the dogs first burst through the windows? At the time, and we were terrified. Now, we can look back on the graphics and have a giggle and and then the same with Resi 2 when you go down the corridor, it's one of the corridors to the left of the police station.
X through the wall.
And the liquor as well on the ceiling when that thing jumps down, and those are look. People have got to remember back then. Those were some of the first survival horror games. You didn't really have anything like that then, so they were truly terrifying. They had the atmosphere, but they also, the story side hooked you in. You wanted to keep playing because you wanted to find out what happened. And then, like saying, you had Mr. X's thing. Just like, what is he? What's the mystery there? And Jeff, don't worry. On this show, I make it open to everybody. It is open to everybody, regardless of their beliefs, culture. I like to look. It's got a comedic title, "Fed Up." Always fed up about something. But I always say to people, whatever they believe in or don't believe in, what the culture is, they're still welcome. I don't have to agree with everything they say. People don't have to agree with everything that I say. The same for the listeners. But it is something where I want it to be laid back, organic. People feel welcome. We can come on here, chat about the music, do the deep dives we're doing, go on random nerd tangents about games, movies, whatever, when we and then come back to the music. So you're absolutely fine, man. And it seems to happen in every show. I mean, for what it's worth, I even had a Christian death metal band on, and he was great. He was a great guest, and and he was fine. I'm like, hey, we still talk about your music, but what your faith is, that's private to you, and it's not going to make me think, oh, you're not coming on the show because you believe in this, whatever. Right. Like, no, man. It's about the music,
Yeah, to me, the lyrical content was not about striking a nerve. It was just sharing a story and sharing a spin on the stories, like we discussed about the fare of the fare that you would use in payment, right? About the person can I didn't want the focus to be about suicide. It's about the journey, the pressures of society that makes this person commit suicide, that them going across, through a void, and they wake up and they're like, okay, and then they go on another journey. It's just it's basically the story we all have. Every day we wake up.
Human existence,
We have to go from waking up in the morning to going back to sleep at night. Whatever happens in that day, then it repeats the next day. But hopefully a different, hope you're not just in a endless cycle of Bill Murray's Groundhog Day is exactly what I'm trying to find.
And the most beautiful thing about music and art, this can encapsulate gaming, movies, is that escapism, and that way it can be a tool for us to release our feelings, both positive and negative, especially in extreme metal, which is a good thing, comes under the art. So and I'm just as you guys are very passionate about it. Love talking about it with people. That's why I always get nerding. I mean, here I am 3 weeks later, still trying to recover from flu. I'm like, yep, rest those pipes. And I'm like, can't help it, man. Just I took 1 week off, and I'm like, I'm missing this already. I'm missing it. Got to get back to it. So
we both been sick not that long as well. Not
yeah,
recently, we both are sick. It's just draining.
yeah,
oh, takes everything out of you.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating, especially when you've got over, like, you feel you've got over the worst of it, but it's lingering around and it's on your pipes, and it's like, then after you've been talking so much, and that's why I have to keep like doing these special effects in the background like this.
When we play shows, you got to step up to the stage. Like the band Kiss were supposed to play here last week. They had to cancel because the Paul Stanley, he was sick. So unfortunately, you got to disappoint a lot of fans. But at the end of the day, they gotta be well enough to be able to perform as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Be realistic about. I mean, he's been sick on stage, not physically throwing up, but I mean, he didn't feel well, and right after the show, it had the bolt because just got to take care of ourselves. Take care of
exactly. Yeah, it's an imbalance. So coming to the closing track, and we'll get into some of the fun facts as well about the band that I was reading in a moment. So departing Acheron, it says, approaching the shores of Necropia, the realm of judgment, the vessel sails closer to its destination. That already strikes up a powerful visual in my mind. The ancients intensify their efforts to deceive and ensnare the voyagers, their intention to imprison these souls, subjecting them to a fate dictated by the ancients themselves just before they face their ultimate judgment. So that closing line there in the description of the song, that already, you've got the powerful image from them approaching the shores of Necropia, and then it's like you've got something added onto that where they're looking at possibly facing imprisonment, and this is a fate dictated by the ancients themselves. So it's like it's not as if it's these Sharon creatures, it's something far, far older, and even they've got to follow these kind of rules. They have no choice. They've got to do this. So that's some really powerful imagery and a very powerful way to close the album with the music as well.
And this is where Pedro really encapsulated the visual, having the figures sitting on the thrones that you see the center of the album cover. I think they really represent the ancients who cast the judgments upon these soul figures. You got the tentacles that are sucking the bodies down into the void. You got these lurking figures on the corner sides that are like the other agents that are there looming in holding people in judgment. And then you got like the demons that are flying up in the sky that are like trying to control and lure the damn soul. So it's as a whole, I had a vision, and I think we executed with Mitch's amazing input. The other two members, Neil and Adam being our bassist and backing vocalist, who did a superb job contributing to Mitch's, adding layers of vocal harmony to Mitch. And Neil brought it with his drums, being able to add some dynamics and take these songs and solidify the songs into what they are. I mean, each of them helped with the writing, the music writing. Lyrically, it was myself, Brandon, and Mitch that did all the writing on this. But orchestral, that was between Mitch and I. But as a whole, Pedro was the other member who was able to bring this together. And I also want to mention Dark Moon Productions, Joe Moon, and his partner Lisa, who welcomed us into their house. So we did all the mixing and mastering there. And Mitch was very fortunate to be able to use the equipment that Joe provided. And I mean, you can talk more about the mixing and mastering process.
Yeah, for sure. So after we've recorded everything here in this basement, we took those files and went straight to thank you to Joe, who kindly let us use his equipment. We took it there, his studio, and we it was a masterful job ever since started going through that oven. I started hearing like all the things that I wanted to hear more. I had more tools in my arsenal that I was able to capture like the sonic emulation that we were kind of going for. So yeah, no, it was definitely a very grateful experience to have been able to go there to put the finishing touches on our album.
And Joe gave access to Mitch to use the equipment. It wasn't like Joe was at the controls. It was really it was really Mitch at the helm, and Joe would give him some guidance. Oh, here's what the software is to do what you need to do. And Joe's never opened his doors to anybody prior. This was the first opportunity for another band to come and use his space in that capacity. So we're really, really gratefully appreciative of Joe and Lisa for their space.
Yeah,
And the kick-ass dog. I gotta admit the dog.
Yeah, the dog's really cute.
I love dogs.
Yeah,
Definitely. I love dogs.
I like them both, man. They're all characters. I even have a crow that visits me. Dances back and forth until I feed it. So animals all have their own little personalities. I thought the track though in itself, the title "Departing Acheron," really powerful title. Sparks my imagination. And it's not, when you were mentioning earlier, Jeff, when some bands they can have on like those filler tracks and you skip them, and I find that sometimes with the last track on an album, it can be like, oh, this is just being put on just to fill it up, and it's something like you don't care for, or an outro. And there's nothing wrong with putting on a instrumental outro or anything like that, if it's done in the right way and I feel it matches the tone of the album and the theme and everything. But I don't feel you've done this, randomly. It closes out the album nicely. It's another good solid song. So did you both want to leave that powerful impression with the listener, both story-wise and musically, so that they'd remember and come back to the album, want to listen to again, rather than just, okay, I'm done, that was standard stuff, but I'm going to move on?
I have always thought about every aspect. Like, I want to grab the listener from the beginning, carry them through, have them ebb and flow, go through a journey, and end strong. Like, I wanted to have to close the loop that when it ends, it gets the person to want to listen again. Like, that to me, when I'm just a listener, like to share in the past, I used to rearrange song orders of people's albums that they released because it's like I didn't find it flowed properly. Like, why would you go from this into this segue? I want it to flow. I want it to be seamless. I want it to be a journey and an experience. And I've done that on countless albums. That I'd reorder the album how I felt it should have been done. This album, it conveyed that we had bookends. We started with an homage. We ended with an homage. Departing is an homage to Carcass in some ways. But we really had the two songs that solidified the story. It has a good start and it has a strong ending. And the ending, how it ends, there's no sample, there's no vocals, nothing orchestral at the end. It's just a hard stop, and that was intentional to be able to have the listener, because the next album, I want to grab them again. I don't want to just ease them slowly into this beautiful thing. No offense to the bands who put 45 minutes of orchestral stuff, but I want to be grabbed as a listener. I just want to be in there. Have it something quick and short, sweet, no problem. But realistically, I want to get to the meat and potatoes of music. So, Departing, again, all these songs were written at a different time. Our next album is going to be written with people cohesively writing together, whereas these songs were, I had most of the material. We brought them to the band. We flushed them out. We rearranged them. We rewrote stuff, but they are what they are. There was a goal to have these songs ordered. I will admit, another member is like, why are we putting certain songs in certain orders? Because he felt we should be putting our strongest songs at the beginning. And I'm like, no, I think you have to have a splattering of all your songs, because if all your strong songs are at the beginning, then what's at the ending? Is it all filler?
Just skip one then. Yeah.
Or is it about there's a voyage? And this was always supposed to be, we're going to go from here and go on the adventure to the end. Like, that's how I interpret it. Everyone's going to have a different impression. Like, oh, why is track 5 a track 5? I want it to be track 2. And I'm just saying, if you don't delve into the being a concept album and all you listen to as the songs, I get that. I get that it's about the songs. Maybe a song's stronger than another, but it really was about to solidify the concept, to be able to have the songs in the order that they are. And Mitch and I try to have segues so the songs actually, and something I will admit to you, Joe, when we were mastering this, we made sure that when you listen to it, it's on the beat. So it's something that Joe was like, oh, I've never had a previous band or anybody who's never thought about it. But if you listen to the ending of Ushered, it goes right on the downbeat into Plane, sorry. And then the segue of the soundscape in From Plains during the lightning crack has the gramophone goes onto it on the beat. So we actually line everything. All 8 songs end on the beat. So how we have the soundscape of Pain from the outro of Ancients. I'm just trying to go through the whole album. We had every song, so it literally was on the beat. So that's something I can also say. It's a little Easter egg that most people wouldn't really catch up on. But we came at this in such a different approach. I didn't want to just be, here's our music, record it, and just release it. Like, I want to have a vision, and Mitch was part of making that vision come true. And I'm really grateful for this. Will other people recognize that? You said you picked up on this yourself, so that to me means there are going to be people who read the lyrics. There are people who are interested in the background details, but majority of people may not give a fuck, and that's okay. But the 1 person or 2 people, that's 100,000 people that do, great, because that might catch on. People might be like, oh, there's more to this than just being music, and that's what I love about Tool. That Tool isn't, they don't really release the lyrics. They're like, hey, the lyrics is an accompanying instrument. I want you to immerse yourself in the experience, and that's what I try to strive for with this album, was to be an experience for sure for the listener.
And I believe we've definitely achieved that. Whenever our album visualizer drops, like what we're mentioning right now will be way more apparent.
Friday,
but I also want to mention that today's listening experience is completely different than how it used to be back then.
Very.
Yeah, exactly. Usually people these days, they judge if they like a song based off 5 to 10 seconds of listening to it.
Guilty.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of it. It's just how it is. Where back in the day, you would put on an album as if you're reading a book and listening it to like front to finish. Even if you weren't, even if it wasn't your cup of tea, you still gave it that, full attention, that full chance. Whereas I find people don't have the discipline nor the attention span for that these days.
No, you're right. You're right, and it's something like with recovering from the flu at the moment, which I've still got. I've been trying to keep the shows like 60 minutes to 90 minutes, and that might be something that I do going forward as a balance. And it's real difficult because being naturally hyper and passionate about all of this, and then talking with people such as yourselves who are equally passionate, we can find time limits goes out the window, and sadly a lot of people don't have that attention span. So something I was thinking of doing, I've said this already to some guests, look, if there's anything we don't get through or we feel we want to talk about something else, we could aim for like 60 minutes, 90 minutes one day, and then do like a part 2 follow-up as 40, 60 minutes. It's kind of a middle ground. So consider all listeners, okay, come back tomorrow or next day where we're going to chat about this. This is what we're going to focus on. It's difficult because me being a nerd, I can happily sit down and listen to something long, watch something long, whatever. To a point, if it's like a 5-hour movie and it's not worthwhile, then that can be a kind of an extreme of that. And now I'm getting a cough attack. So it's a difficult one because I always look. I had the noble intention of making this show open for all kinds of music, even music I didn't like, and even if it be more commercial styles, because I'm interested in the creative process. But I feel I kind of set things up a bit too big where it was becoming so wide. And to be honest, guys, some of the spam I was getting in my inbox, I was like, this just isn't going to get supported. This just isn't going to be good for the audience. And I'm not saying there's no good talented pop singers that can't sing or do any of that stuff, but I'm like, there's got to be a bit of a kind of metal punk core, bit of a bass here that can keep it centered around that, because otherwise it's going to just get too far away from that, and I'm setting myself up for a whole other headache. So that's why I kind of rein things in. I mean, I'm going a long-winded rant, but kind of what we were saying there with music, attention spans. Yeah, you do. You have to. And what I try to do with some of those submissions albums, I try and look for something positive. I used to be like, oh, well, this isn't really what I like, but I'll try and look for something in there, see if this is good in the way it's done. But then I realized it's just no one's going to care for this. So I thought, let's get back to the essence of what it's about. But you both must. Something you mentioned, Jeff, that you're all going to write together for the next release. So that must be something that you're all excited about and interested in. Absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to hear that next album to see both, musically and lyrically as well. It's going to be interesting for me as a listener to compare it to this release.
Well, as I can admit this, as much as we're not going to be continuing this album, there will not be like a Realm 3. There is going to be an overall theme, but they're going to be individual tracks for the next album. I can admit that. We've already discussed that's what we want to do, but we're not going to just have, hey, this song's going to be about this and that song's going to be random. Like, it's not going to be random that. There's still going to be a theme, but it's not going to be a full concept, if that makes any sense. Like, at least we're writing with, okay, this is what we wanted to hint on, but we're going to try to approach it from very different angles. And Mitch and I have been excited about we come up with a concept, and we're like, well, then we'd be inspired by, say, Alien movie would come into it, be like, that's a whole different spin on it. Like, Prometheus had a different spin on it. It's like, well, let's adapt that into the original concept to make it, again, not just look at, here's Charon. We're going to talk about the mythical character of Charon. We're going to add our own spin on it. And that's all I'm trying to do with this. We're not trying to proclaim that, oh, we're original. Not in any means. My whole goal for the Hatred Reigns has been to work with new talent and to work with and to throw all of our passions into a blender and create whatever we create. The problem is some people work with other people. They're going to have different styles, or, oh, this sounds too reminiscent of something else. So that's where you can butt heads, or the magic disappears. Like, holy shit, I can't believe we created that. Like, again, it's an empty canvas when you start, but you hope at the end it's going to be something you can be proud of, because I just don't want to write filler. My drummer was saying in the other project he plays in, they'd write songs, and after a while, like a few weeks, a few months, they'd be like, meh, and they'd scrap it. That could be like a 7-minute song. I'd be like, how do you do that? But at the end, it's also about attachment issues. You do have to compromise. You do have to sometimes realize this song really has nothing to do with the rest of it. Even though it might be a good song, maybe put it on the shelf and you don't like Departing. I wrote it in 2005. It didn't work with any other project I had, so it was kind of like, okay, I shelved it. With this project, it actually made sense, so it was brought out again. So sometimes things aren't good ideas at the time, but maybe they get used later, or come up with better ideas. That's what I am excited about this new project, is coming up with new ideas. So I have a question for you to ask you there, guys.
Yeah.
Do you like bands that every album kind of sounds like the same, or do you like seeing a band that can evolve? Like, how much do you want a band to? Here's their first album. I'll use like a Peth. Their first albums were really black metal. Now they're a 70s rock prog band. Is that too much of a dynamic, or do you think it's okay for bands to experiment album by album, to explore different influences and ideas?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm going to sound a bit like I'm going to contradict myself and some of the things I've said in some of my shows, so I'm going to give you a multi-layered answer, but it's relevant. Okay, if it's hardcore or grindcore, which I absolutely love, then yeah, I would like the albums to really to sound the same, to sound that raw feel, to be aggressive, because that's historically what works for those genres and what I'm used to hearing from there. So for those genres, I'm happy for the album to stay the same. With a rawer, heavier sound. Okay, Brutal Death. This is an interesting one. With Brutal Death, I still want the heaviness to be there. The same particularly in Slam, but I am quite happy for a band to experiment artistically with the lyrics, the themes, or even to bring in different elements, even an orchestral effect, if it still remains brutal. There is a band who are on the show recently. They're on Comatose Records, a Slam band, fantastic band called Cryptic's Mortality, and they've got different themes for their releases, and they did like a sci-fi horror theme for their new album that's out at the moment. So there's an example of, they still had the heavy music, the sound was still there, but lyrically it was different. It brought in a different focus. And I think Brian said to me, the next release could be something different. It could go back to being horror, or might be a different aspect of sci-fi, something different. Now, with other music, it depends on the genre for me. With a band like Opeth, and I've seen them live twice, amazing. And I'm not going to try and sound like a musical pretentious idiot here. because I think Opeth are just so fantastic, to be honest. Whatever they put out, I like. Even yes, Masters Apprentice, Deliverance, all that stuff, absolutely great. But even the current material, I like. Because I just think they're just such good musicians, and the guy's such a talented vocalist as well. With some other genres, if it's I'm trying to think of an example I can give you now. If the sound changes too much where it gets away from the core essence of that band, then I often think you may as well just come up with a different band name. I know I've just sound like I've contradicted the answer I've given for Opeth.
No, I understand. To me, that's where the Metallica falls into that category. Some talk about these big bands, but there's some bands that they ebb and flow. They go through a period. Like I love Cryptopsy, but you compare Cryptopsy and Suffocation Cannibal have always released strong albums, and no offense, Flo. Like they went for a new style, and it kind of backfired on them. And yet, I love the first 3 songs on that album. It's just the clean vocals for Cryptopsy does not work.
It didn't.
Be aggressive.
Clean vocals in Cryptopsy.
They had.
Yep.
And it backfired on them, and it really they've been paying for it ever since. But I mean, there's a band that I love all of their albums, even that album, but I have to pick and choose what I love, and I guess the core to me is the Whisper of Supremacy, the certain albums, and None So Vile. Those are the 2 albums that definitely epitomize Cryptopsy. But I love so many of their albums for sure. Yeah, about that band.
The thing, and I've said this to guests on the show as well. The thing that I respect and understand is, I wouldn't want to. Look, if an artist does want to evolve and does want to experiment, fine, because I appreciate they don't want to be playing the same thing all the time or get bored or not growing. So in that sense, I just think it depends on the genre. With some genres, like if it's a raw or heavier genre, it really has to stay around the core essence. With other genres, I think, yes, you can evolve, you can grow, you can experiment, and I'm all for that. That's great. And the good thing is we get many bands, singers, guitar players where they will have side projects. So the bands where they're like, this isn't going to really fit with a band that I'm in for, say, Brutal Death, for example, but I'll do a power metal band, on the side because I know that will work more with them. I think that's fine. I don't get like any of these people where they're like, I just want you to play this, I just want you to do this band, how dare you do this? And if I don't like it, I don't waste my time like they do. I'm going to log on tonight, get my keyboard warrior muscles on, and I'm going to send them a load of hate. I'm like, come on, man, why? If you don't like it, that's fine. And if even, and I'm going to say this now on the show live, if a band come on and they did, and they've got an album said that I don't like, or they release something and I'm like, I'm not into it, and it's say I prefer the previous album over it or whatever, I'm still going to talk to him. I'm still going to be interested in how they put everything together, because at the end of it, it's all.
Oh, you're on mute.
No, he's. Oh, you're mute.
Sorry. I was saying this is annoying at times when it happens when I get the cough attack, and then that's annoying when I forget to unmute. So long story short, I guess depends on the genre. I think with rawer, heavier styles, I prefer to hear the heaviness that I'm used to, but there's other ways around it. You can change the lyrical themes like Cryptic's Mortality do in those instances. With other genres, I've absolutely no problem with it. Sometimes you can get, like you said, a band like Opeth where it's just amazing, whatever they do, and that's no pretentious butt kiss in there. The key thing is, regardless of my personal opinion, I'm not one to put limits on a person creatively. If they want to experiment and evolve, even if it's a counter to my opinions, then absolutely, fine with that.
That's where this album, as I say, I'm hoping it reaches to a lot of audience base, because there is black metal, there is brutal, there is progressive, like the outro of Absentia. It's a departure from the rest of the album, but even the outro of Plains, very different contrast to the rest of the album. But that's what we were feeling. That's what was inspired by in the moment, and same for the future music. we're going to be infusing our new elements, not just repeating the same things. And
Yeah.
and that's what I'm excited for is the new evolution. But
Agreed.
I don't want to write within a box. I like to have the box
Yeah.
be open. Like, to me, that's what's important to me. Whatever comes out is what the album is. So I don't want to be repetitive. 9 songs that sound identical. Yes, it's exciting for the first song, but by the time we get to the 5th song, it sounds the same.
Yeah, because
Yeah, and then you both.
That's just me. That's my approach. But that doesn't always appeal to everybody. Like, so I'll use Opeth as an example. Some people didn't discover Opeth until the latest albums,
Yeah.
right? Then they had to go check out the backlog, and they may not find the affiliation to affinitive. They may not like the old. Like, some people love one album or 2 albums, and they don't love everything by a band. I mean, Metallica for me, I love the old stuff. I don't like the new stuff. You know, similarly for other bands, Dream Theater, whatever band you want to put in here. Any band that has like 10 albums, there's going to be some that appeal to others, and some that just they bomb, and some that are hailed as, like, godly. So I just don't know what the next writing is going to be, but I just hope it isn't 5 years before we release the next thing. I really hope we can get motivated to release.
Well, use the momentum, definitely build upon it, and like we said, there is even with heavier genres, as I was saying, you can still bring in different elements, both lyrically, or look at an orchestral part and we say, okay, we are going to make this work in this part. There's been lots of bands who've done it in both brutal death and deathcore as well, and it can still be very heavy. So there's always a way around it, and that's when like you were said, that's stepping outside the box. Music and movies that step outside the box always grab my attention anyway. There's even been, okay, I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself. Maybe I am in some ways. Even when there's been something, say, that I'm not a fan of, but if I can respect the creativity, it's outside the box. Say, well, it's not really what I like, but that's different. So depends on the circumstance, the genre, but you can utilize different lyrical themes, different concept, even bring in different elements and still retain that core essence. I get if it goes too far away from the core essence, then it's no longer that band. And I realize Opeth could be viewed as doing that, but yet for me, it still works. I can, it's like I can tell you're a band. And everyone always asks you what your favorite band is. Well, I can tell you a band I can't stand, and I'll tell you the band I absolutely cannot stand them, and I don't get. Look, and I respect who I had a guest who liked them, and each their own. I absolutely can't stand Ghost. I really do not like that band at all.
The artwork. I love their artwork, but their artwork does not reflect their music.
It's just
I don't know the music at all.
Yeah, the music's man, they're just a generic poppy rock.
Yeah. But the artwork does not signify what the artwork to me is going to be. Oh my God, it's going to be a brutal the Slaughter band from Russia.
And it's not. You hear it.
Yeah, it's like this. I expect something to be more brutal, and that doesn't live up to that. Yeah.
It'd be funny if you got like a real brutal death or a slam band on with them as well, and they come out where we're all dark, and then you get on a brutal slam. Right. Just watch them shrink away. Not being a metal elitist, honestly, folks. Just the humor there. Yeah. But Ghost. I was going to make a point with Ghost. Now I've forgotten with feeling the coffin attack.
For me, it's Lamb of God. Just so you know, I don't get them Killswitch Engage, and
what
I don't like.
I actually like Lamb of God.
And I don't like Lamb of God. They just they're repetitive,
Right.
But, hey, to each their own. But I went to a show where it was Cryptopsy opening up, Behemoth in the middle, and Lamb of God headlining, and having an argument with my bandmate over, oh my God, Lamb of God, because their fan base. But at the end of the show, he said Cryptopsy should have actually been the headliner, not Lamb of God. So it was interesting because I'm a very loyal fan of Cryptopsy. It was interesting to see how much he flipped because he hadn't experienced them live. And when he saw it live, he's like, man, Lamb of God have an amazing following. They have amazing crowd response and everything. It's
Well,
watered down metal for me. I like more extreme, aggressive, brutal stuff.
You're
That's
on
my
your,
Well,
take.
you're on your own there, man. I don't know. Lamb
But
of
that's
God
all
was
good.
a huge like influence for me
Sure.
growing up. Like, you know, like if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even maybe care about the music as
But
much.
he doesn't listen to Death. He doesn't listen to like the root stuff that I was raised on. So like
Well,
Different
Disincarnate.
generation.
So
I
I'm
guess.
saying
Well,
there's different influences that happen, right?
well,
So,
there is, but then you can get cats as well, like myself, where we listen to it all. I know we like
Yeah.
everything. Lamb of God. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like him now because of the clean vocals that Randy's been using. I still like them, but their early stuff. And when they come out of the hardcore scene, when they were Burn the Priest, I think it was the late '90s demo on which they remastered, and then the full follow-on 2 albums, the one that got them really big and known with some of those breakdowns. I mean, it's almost like a different band, the early releases, and there was some insanely heavy stuff. And I remember all the hardcore people loved them at that time as well. There's a there's a lot worse. I'm not crazy on Killswitch, to be honest. Then the band I've never really, so I'm with you on that one, Jeff. I've always preferred Lamb of God over them. But the funny thing is, it's like, yeah, my bass, DB, grindcore, crust punk, hardcore, then brutal death and slam and standard death metal and a bit of HM2 as well, thrash crossover. That's all my favorites. And then outside of that, there'll be doom, sludge, stoner rock. There'll be people thinking, well, you just like all metal and punk. Then yeah, I guess. But
what I find interesting, so I'm cutting you off, but
that's
what I
all
find
right.
interesting in this genre is how broad the spectrum really is. There's so many genres, and not everybody has to like everything. But you got the core fans who love a certain band, and then you got the other person who's like, I don't know who this band is, and then they go see them live. They're like, man, because seeing a band live can really sell a band, or work in their favor, not work in their favor. And like, to me, an album can be an amazing experience, but seeing a band live, performing it live, it's just seeing bands live, I think, is a great experience. But for me, music in this genre is so diverse. And for anyone to just say, I'm only going to listen to this, I don't listen to this, I don't listen to this, because for whatever reason, like, do you really give them the chance if you listen to it? So like, as I say, Lamb of God for me, I was listening to more technical stuff. So that's where I'm attached to more aggressive, brutal stuff. But there's other genres within it that I don't know it. I don't listen to all those bands, so I'm equally just as hypocritical. I'm not trying to.
We all are. I think we all are to a point. We all are. I mean, it's had. But yeah, I've said my favorites is more on the aggressive lines. Of course it is, but it doesn't mean I don't like any other music or the lighter styles or some of the popular, oh God forbid, commercial styles which Lamb of God can come under now. I mean, my root favorite stuff, it's like if I was going to return to doing radio shows again, which I used to do, it would be for the extreme ends, because that's my favorite. It's not that I don't like any of the lighter styles, but my point would be, well, everyone plays that. I want to focus on more the extreme stuff because it's more niche. Not everybody does that. There's so much, and this is where sadly the gatekeeping can get out of hand. And hey, when I first got into death metal, I only said to Vaughn from Reap and the past show before this, I went through my death metal is law and nothing else is real stuff. We all go through it, and sadly some people don't come out of it. But there's so many genres, it's insane. You have the whole electro metal crossover now as well, and metal step, and there's even like there's a whole underground darker scene of electronic music, witch house, dark techno, etc. And to be honest, you can tell a lot of the people who make that music are metalheads or extreme metalheads, because it's all like black and death metal song titles, and it's like a dark counterpoint to the more mainstream version of EDM. You think you would come?
Music needs to evolve. It needs to evolve. And I'll point to Mitch again. Mick has a solo project called Insight, and I'm a super big fan of it because he's meshed. So kind of like H. Rains, he's taken his favorite elements and put them in a blender. And
nice.
He has like this industrial.
Industrial is cool, man.
It's awesome and it's engaging.
Yeah.
It's my interpretation of like meshing the metalcore, deathcore side of the genre with like the death metal and just regular progressive metal too.
Yeah.
And I add a hint of industrialism to it.
Oh, nice.
Just to give it that sci-fi edge on. And yeah, no, it's probably one of my proudest works actually. I did release it around I believe it was October. Yeah, I released.
You'll have to send me a link, man. I can have a listen to that. Industrial, some industrial can be very dark, and again, the nerd in me loves the sci-fi elements in there, very dystopian. And that music, we actually had a death thrash band called Chaos Reigns. I think they're called Chaos Reigns. They're from South Africa, and it was basically death thrash with industrial music all put together, and it was a nice blend. It added that dark edge. So there's an example of, we were saying, like, we're talking about this evolving where you can still be heavy and incorporate another element, and it hasn't really changed your core essence too much. I mean, classic example in deathcore, like Lorna Shore, Black and Deathcore, using the orchestral. I'm gonna have to cough for this one. So there's always ways of stepping outside the box, creative ways. It's not just in music. Look at martial arts. It happened with MMA. I mean, Bruce Lee was one of the first, if you like, martial artists that thought outside the box, that wanted to bring in elements from other styles that work more practical. And he had founded his own system, Jeet Kune Do. And now we have MMA, which is still continuously evolving. You've got urban combatives as well, another system continuously evolving, because people are looking, and like with music, taking bits of those styles and evolving forward. I realize I've just contradicted a lot of my answers when you asked me that question, but it's so wide ranging and multi-layered. I think there's always a place for growing, stepping outside the box. Of course, some genres I would want to sound the same, because that's why I'm listening to it, for that heaviness, like grindcore, brutal death and slam. But you can still bring in another element, either lyrically or an effect with industrial. Then with some genres, if it gets too far away from the core essence, it doesn't quite work. You were mentioning, Jeff, I think Metallica is a famous example. How a lot of people like early Metallica, don't like the later releases. Well, another very famous, if you like, mainstream band, Arch Enemy. A lot of people only like the early releases with the original male vocalist, and then the first early albums with Angela.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then they feel they've got too soft and too poppy after that. So the way I
was great. As a person, as a musician, she was awesome in the band. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know them for free though, so.
Yeah, me myself with Archer, I only like the early stuff. I don't really like the later stuff. I've seen them though; they are good musicians.
For me, switching topics, but still within it. To me, evolving music, we've seen music evolve, like from early '80s to like late '80s to early '90s to like industrial kind of. It all segued into these different things. But what I love to see new music evolving is for it to come together, and that's where I say insight that Mitch has. These bands that are crossing and fusing things, like people mock new metal, but I mean Linkin Park and the Korn and these bands that evolve, how they're able to fuse things. It re-energized the music energy. To me, that's what we need now. We need something that's kind of merging these different elements to make it exciting, to make it punch you in the face. Like the Rammstein, has seen them live with the thematic performance live, but I want to see like a technical brutal death metal band out there with a thematic theme. Like to me, that's what's engaged. Rob Zombie's amazing, not just because of his music, but he has all the visuals. I'm just saying, it'd be nice to infuse this, but it takes time. Time takes money, and unfortunately, this genre is not really fused with a lot of income. We have fans, you got devoted fans, but you don't really have the financial support. But there's a passion out there, man. Like metal musicians, I find, are more open-minded about music of all genres.
Agreed.
Who only listens to the radio pop rock.
Agreed.
They're like, no, I don't want to talk about jazz. I don't want to talk about classical music. I don't know anything. I don't know anything but what's popular. And like that's what I love about metal is that typically the people are into video games. They're into all these different subgenres and topics. That's exciting to talk to them.
And the passion. And well, look, this is a prime example. The last what, and we've gone over, and I'm not complaining at all. Look at the last 20 minutes of this conversation. That is a prime example of that passion, of the we're chatting about, obviously different genres. I've mentioned, the electronic music because that's a relatively new crossover genre where they are pushing it forward. Not every band sounds great. Some of it can sound a bit too soft, but it's still interesting to see. It's going forward. I do agree about the openness. You see, a lot of people get stereotypes about metal and metalheads that, hey, they're all evil, they're all on death, destruction, whatever. That, oh yeah, anybody can do it. It's easy to do the vocals. Anyone can play fast. No, it isn't. Have to have your voice trained. You've got to be able to project. The same with conditioning your fingers to play at that speed, changing tempo, etc. It's so multi-layered and complicated. It's insane. But you're right. I tend to find the musicians and the singers look at everything, even outside of that scene, and it's amazing some of the other genres that people will say they listen to, such as jazz. And I've had people talk about various jazz drummers that have been an influence on somebody's style, and that's something that's overlooked. The reason I mention it because of the speed, and that's where you can get a lot of death metal drummers from a jazz background, just because of the speed associated and how they can go through that freestyle and rhythm changing up. So I'm totally with you. The most frustrating thing is when you meet the generic kind of gatekeeping elitist from any scene that just refuses to even give anything a chance, refuses just to look at that music. And I always say to people, look, there can be, with say some of the commercial stars, I'm like, dude, you've got to think of it like this. That can be an entry point for some people into the whole scene. So we should still welcome them. And you mentioned new metal, Jeff. Well, new metal did a lot of collabs with some underground hip hop guys. So that served as a gateway into people checking out cats like Tech Nine, for example. And that's not a bad thing.
No, it opened the door for metal to be more mainstream and
Yeah.
appreciated. A lot of people shit on it, but I think I just look at how can we grow this, and one of the points I've been driving forward is how do we get the younger youth to pick up instruments and play music, and we've got to find a way for them to connect. If that connection is Lamb of God or some of these bands we're talking about, or Cryptopsy or whoever, all we need is younger people to carry the torch and pass the baton down, because these bands are going to be saying goodbye. In the next 10 years, most of these gods bands that we look up to will not be performing live. And I was honored this year to be able to take my daughter to see Iron Maiden. So she'll be able to carry that forward in her life. Whereas some people will never get to see these bands ever. Like Slayer no longer perform. Most people, how many people are going to be talking about Slayer 10 years from now? I want it to be carried on. I want people to be the younger generation that play music and create bands.
The good thing is I'm very optimistic and confident. It is because there's been a whole HM2 old school death revival. It's been going on probably for the last 10 years. Thrash that never really went away. We've got, even in classic rock, they call it like the new wave of classic rock, people coming out and playing that classic rock style. People will always look back in music, regardless of whatever genre, especially real music that isn't manufactured and soulless and disposable. They will always look back and be inspired by that and think, I want to make music like that, even if it's going back to swing. I'm demonstrating how much of a nerd I am. I sit and watch stuff even with genres I don't like, just the history of it, because I find that interesting. So people will always seek that out, want to play that music, collaborate with others going forward. So I'm just going on the bands I've talked to on this show and ones I used to play on the radio shows when I did them. I'm very confident and optimistic in that regard, and I feel that after COVID as well, people, regardless of whether it's the heaviest form of metal or not, people want to hear some real music again, where people are playing their instruments, because I think everybody knows that whole manufactured, soulless pop filler that keeps getting churned out, that it's just disposable bubblegum, man. People are soon going to forget that. That's not going to stand the test of time. And even if it's non-metal, people are wanting that real music. again. That's why I have to respect John Wick. You see, movies and games is another way where we can get people into music with people doing scores and soundtracks. And John Wick featured a lot of dark techno, which again got people into that scene. I totally respect that. And hey, I've had heat at times where I've had cats say to me, "Oh, you like a lot of underground hip hop as well. You're supposed to be a metal dude, a punk dude. Oh, you're too hardcore for metal." I'm like, what's it matter, man? I've got my favorites, and outside of that, I like other music as well. And yeah, as I said, I'm wanting to keep this show now kind of with its core metal punk base. But if someone reaches out to me and they're passionate about coming on here and they're saying, "Look, I really want to talk about what I do," and I could say to them, "Well, you might not get a great response because I'm not sure my audience will want your music. But if there's something there that's interesting, I feel, well, it might bring something in. I can look at it." I've just gone off on a tangent there, and there was a point, and I've lost what that point was. Yeah. So
to me, it's just being open-minded.
It is
enjoying different styles of music. That's no matter if it's metal or not, just enjoy it and support it. Supporting it is key. Like, support the local bands, support not just the major touring bands, support your local bands wherever you're at. Be there and take an interest. Go talk to them. That's one thing I love about metal. People are approachable to talk to. Not everybody, but enough are approachable.
Majority, yeah.
I love it.
That's why I do this, because I want to give people the chance to talk about what they do, why they do it. Sometimes we feature indie film guests, something I'm still working on in the background. I've got other plans for different content as well, which, no surprise, is related to martial arts. Purely for those reasons you said, Jeff. So I know we've talked for quite a while today, longer than planned, but no problem with that. It's been a very interesting conversation. When it gets
sometime.
What was that? Sorry, Joe.
We can connect another time, maybe.
Oh, definitely. Well, with your
later on, we could have a follow up. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. And with you, with the well, yeah, I'll be filming with your other bands as well. And I'm sure I got that Plasmaphobia promo in my inbox recently. I think from Asher Media. I'm sure I did, and it was on my list to hit up, and I haven't yet. So we set something up for that, Mitch, for sure. But when I get to the end of any episode, I always like to give guests the opportunity to promote anything they want, not just the band that they're in. So do you want to plug some of your other bands again and shout out anybody that you would like to? The floor is yours.
Well, I'll just do Hatred Reigns first. So our album drops on Friday, and we have our album release show here in Ottawa on January 13th, where we're going to be sharing the stage with Mitch's other band and let him talk about his other projects.
Yeah, so in January, Thalassophobia is releasing their 8-track album.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool stuff where we talk about a lot of the underwater like fears and depths that comes with it. I released Insight in October, and that's spelled INSYTE. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, the whole shebang. I'm also in a project called MIM, which stands for More is More. It's with a good friend of mine from Belgium named Steph Mikolajczyk. We hired Marco Pizzarella to be our drummer for that one song. So
nice.
He's a slow drummer.
Oh yeah, he's too slow. No,
Kitty Marco.
By far one of the most renowned drummers in death metal. So it's an honor to be working with him. And I'm also part of a new metal project called Madlander, where I'm just the hype man doing metal vocals in the background.
Oh, nice man, Madlander. Nice.
Yeah. You should check them out. The rapper in that project actually was a dear old friend of mine from the 3rd grade, so it's kind of surreal to see myself.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's
the other project.
Oh yes,
that's another album that's
oh yes.
Almost...
Last and not least, I'm also a part of a death metal band called Harvested, and when we should be releasing our also 8-track album. The album name's called Dysthymia. Hopefully soon in the coming year, maybe in.
Nice.
Yeah. So Adam, who isn't here, he's the vocalist for Harvested.
Yes.
And his other project is A Scar for the Wicked, which are releasing an album. and Neil, our drummer, plays in Deformatory, who also will be releasing.
Oh, no, Deformatory, yeah.
So we are all a part of bands that are actively working here in Ottawa. We're building our scene. We're trying to get Ottawa on the map, man. Montreal's on the map, Vancouver on the map. Every city in Canada has talent. Every city around the world has talented bands, but Ottawa is growing and developing a scene. Like we have Topon and Joe. I got to say, Joe Moon for being places to go record are top notch, and we got stellar talent here in the city that are also hired in Suffocation, Sowen, Annihilator, First Fragment. You got all kinds of talented bands that come from Ottawa, talented musicians that are working and just trying to put out really good, strong music for people to enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. Totally get that. What you'll both have to do is just send me an email with all the bands you're in, and then just book up the dates in advance. Look about this. That'll be the easiest thing. So, right, guys, here's this one, and I'll just schedule them all in advance. For be the easiest thing.
So Hatred Reigns will be available at hatredreigns.bandcamp.com and on all your streaming platforms, DistroKid, Covers, Spotify, all the works. We do have our streaming video will be dropping on Thursday, November 30th by Decibel, and we're going to be officially releasing it on Friday, December 1st. So our music will be out to the world, and we have more videos to come in the coming weeks.
Oh, there we go. Just quick nerd question before I do let you go. And this one's for Mitch, actually. I haven't played it. Have you played that game? It's a first-person shooter, and it's supposed to be a metal rhythm game. It's got all the bands on the soundtrack, and you have to, I think, like shoot things in time to the beat of the songs. It's got some very famous metal bands on there, and it's quite new. I think it did come out this year. I'll quickly Google it. I think it's known as a metal rhythm first person shooter.
I haven't heard of that though. No, that sounds intriguing.
There we go. Metal Hellsinger. That's it. Metal Hellsinger. Yeah, look that one up, folks. It's on Steam. It'd bug me if I let them go, and then you'd probably get an email in the middle of the night saying, "Oh yeah, this game was blah blah." That's the name. So thanks for coming on, both. I do look forward to talking to you again, especially with your other bands that you're involved with as well. I'm fascinated by I forget the name now. The Ocean band Thalassophobia.
Thalassophobia.
There we go. There. It's because I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah.
So yeah, folks, I shall see you on the next episode of Fed Up, which is Friday, I think, with Ego Planet. Everybody take care. Shout out to Hatred Reigns, of course, to Mitch and Jeff for joining me. It's been an awesome conversation. Shout out to John at Asher Media for connecting us as always. And shout out to all of you, whether you've watched now live or later. Don't forget to support, follow, subscribe to Fed Up to stay up to date on everything that is happening. I am working on other things behind the scenes as well, outside of music, to bring in other content to the channel. I'll just give you a little hint. It's martial arts related, so no surprises there. Anyway, we're going to hit end stream, and I'm going to do my uncomfortable pause moment, which you all should be used to now. So here we go.